Hi, I'm Margot with Jits Chicks, and as promised, I'm going to give a whole tutorial on how and why to do a raw diet. I'm going to start by explaining why dogs are not herbivores, they're not omnivores, they're not vegetarians, they're strict carnivores. Part of the reason is because of the way that their teeth are shaped, the way that the length of their GI tract and their pH balance that is naturally in their stomachs and intestines. If you go on Facebook and add the raw feeding support group, it will have an entire canine starter guide that will tell you all the reasons why a dog should be on a raw diet as opposed to kibble, and also it'll give you lots of information on how to do a raw diet step by step. I'll start with the story that I originally had a giant 205-pound English Mastiff Great Dane mix called Brutus. I got him for free on Craigslist because someone was dumping him. I love doing rescue. I like saving dogs. And I had him about 1.5 years, and at the very end we found out that he had cancer, and it kind of rocked my world. I went crazy researching everything, finding not just veterinarians that were very educated, but also people who had dogs with cancer, people who were very schooled in the raw diet. I have a couple of friends at the Mastiff Rescue of South Florida in Palm City, and Great Dane Rescue in Jupiter Farms. Great Dane Rescue doesn't do raw feeding, but the Mastiff Rescue does. I learned a lot from Pam. She's amazing. Please donate to her because she works her ass off. So I'm going to start by at least telling everybody what you need to get, how you can do the raw diet for very, very cheap. And as I'm cutting up meat and putting everything together, I will be explaining a little bit more of the reasons why to do a raw diet for your dog. You're going to prevent cancers. You're going to get rid of all of the allergies. The only time a dog is allergic to a protein or a meat typically is going to be because of the grain that they feed chickens. So some dogs will be allergic to chicken. Just switch your brand. Usually some grains they're allergic to and some grains they're not. I'm also going to be explaining how to do flea and tick prevention and heartworm medication that's more natural and safe and doesn't have preservatives in it and doesn't cause seizures like the stuff that you get from the vet. So what I'm going to start with is the most important part, and this is why a lot of vets will deter you from doing a raw diet, because people do it wrong. The 3 most important things you're going to need before you even worry about the meats are 3 types of organs. You're going to need a muscle organ, a secreting organ, and another type of offal, which is liver. So the offal is going to be chicken liver like this. You can do chicken liver, beef liver. On the raw diet page on Facebook, it has an entire chart of all the organs you can use and the percentage of each. So chicken liver to start, you want to get beef kidney. This can be replaced with chicken ovaries or testicles, which is my favorite. Anywhere you can get them, you can usually get them at an Asian market or Tapatia somewhere. A lot of different markets. Publix is starting to carry them now. And you want a muscle organ. I'm sorry, this is a secreting organ. This is a muscle organ, which is chicken hearts. You can get beef hearts. You can get a lot of different muscle organs. It'll show you the list on the Facebook page. Very cheap. Everything's under. This is $1.75. These are $3. These are $4. Very cheap to get those. So you're going to start with the organs, and you want 3 types of meat. You can do white meat and dark meat. You're going to at least want a little bit of dark meat in every meal, and everything else can be white meat if you want. However much you buy, depending on the prices, you can get discounts. Any way you want to do it, you can do it as long as you combine at least 3 meats, 3 different types of meat per meal. So what I like to do is, it's hard to see on camera, but I've got a big box. I get 40-pound boxes of chicken quarters, which is part of the bone. There's 10% bone in each meal, and the chicken quarters make up for a lot of that, and they're very cheap. They used to be at Restaurant Depot about 30 cents a pound. Right now they're 56 cents a pound, but the prices are going back down. Another tip too is to get a Restaurant Depot membership. The way that you do that is anyone who owns any business, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be a food business, any friend of yours that has a tax ID number or a tax ID card from a business, it can be a roller skating company, it doesn't matter. Sign up online, bring in their tax ID, and it's a free membership. This is probably double the price at Sam's Club or Costco, which is still ridiculously inexpensive. So then I have pork and I have beef. I just buy the cheapest pork I can get, the cheapest beef I can get. I have ribs, which is very, very inexpensive at Restaurant Depot. Really, ribs are for larger dogs because they're a very soft bone, but they're also a very large bone, that's what she said. And it's gonna be harder for a small dog to eat it. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. I have a 150-pound Great Dane, so he chews through those like nothing. Then I just have plain chicken. I didn't get a 40-pound box of the plain chicken today because it was very expensive, so I just have this just to show you. The price is gonna be going down soon, but I used to get a 40-pound box of chicken breasts for probably $13. And then chicken necks is a good thing that you can just add in if you want to add in for extra bone content. And this is what I call beef trachea or deer trachea. It's obviously a trachea. This is very hard to get. You cannot find this really at any store. You have to know somebody. I know a guy who knows a guy who's a butcher. In order to get the trachea, it's very hard to find. You kind of have to ask different butchers and ask around. I also, in the sink over here, I've got a whole bunch of deer scraps that my butcher gave me too. So here's a mix of the organs. I've already cut them all up. Typically, you're not supposed to do this, but to make it easy, because I have such a big dog and it's just much easier, I do a third, a third, and a third. I cut up the same amount of chicken liver, the same amount of kidney, and the same amount of hearts, and I just throw them all together. Another organ which would be considered a secreting organ, the most disgusting thing you will ever smell in your whole life, besides your ex-girlfriend, is green tripe. It's the stomach lining of a cow. You can't buy it at any store. Once again, you have to personally know a butcher. Now, the green tripe and the beef trachea is not necessary. It's just an additive because it's very, very nutritious. If you can find it from a butcher, great. If you never feed it to your dog his whole life, fine. It's part of the organ mix. It smells so bad that if you want to go on a diet, just take a sniff and you won't eat anything for 2 days. So we're going to get into hip care for larger dogs. Green-lipped mussels is amazing. I would do about 2 a day for a really large dog, 1 a day for a smaller dog. I make my own bone broth. You can get marrow bones from Publix. I think it's $5 for about this much, or you can go to a butcher. And you use a crock pot. My crock pot's not out right now. You do 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You put all the marrow bones into the crock pot, fill it up to about 1 inch below the surface, put it on low for an hour, and then high for an hour, and then low for 24 hours, and scoop all the bones and everything out of it, and then you have what's left is the bone broth. I use a ladle, I put it in these and I freeze it, and he goes through about 1 of these every 2 weeks or so. Pour a couple tablespoons on their food. Really good for their hips, for long-term care, for dogs who have, this is good for injuries, especially the green-lipped mussels, really good for injuries, for healing torn ACLs. I actually recommend both of these for people too, especially my jiu-jitsu friends. If you have torn knees or your meniscus, any joints in general, this stuff is very powerful, especially if you make it natural. The bone broth tastes disgusting, but you can just chug it. I also feed a mix of glucosamine and salmon oil. Sorry, this is a little disgusting because I use it every day. I have another one of these right now, but one is a jug of salmon oil and one is a jug of glucosamine, and it's probably about $40 on Amazon. Sometimes they go on sale. This, now 150-pound dog, this lasts me almost a year. So it's like $2 a month, $3 a month, depending on how much you buy it for. It's great. Okay, Heartworm Care. Do not use, I've actually signed a legal non-disclosure, so I can't say the name, but let's just call it Trifluxus. Also, don't use Heartgard, don't use any of those. A lot of seizures, there's a lot of preservatives, there's a lot of medications in it and additives and fillers and stuff that will give your dog seizures. It's also, even if your dog is not affected that way, it's still not good for their overall health long-term throughout their life. An easier method, no, this is not natural, this is still a dewormer, and it's still somewhat chemical, but it's far safer and it's way less of a dose, is called agramectin, or you can call it ivermectin. They use it on goats and cattle. It's very cheap. This was $25. I bought it 3 years ago. I still have more than half the bottle because it takes very little. It prevents not only heartworms, but hookworms, a whole slew of worms, almost every worm that your dog can get, even in swamp grass, Florida. It still is going to prevent almost all the worms and their larvae. So it kills it before it ever even gets into their system. So the way you do this is you get a needle. You can order this online on Amazon. It comes with real needles. You extract it from the bottle. I pour it into a little cup, let's say this little cup, and then I take an eyedropper and I suck it out of the cup, and you just squirt it into the back of your dog's throat and they swallow it just like you would give any oral medication. So the way that you do it is every 40 days, not 30 days like you do heartworm medication, every 40 days you use 0.01 cc's of agramectin per pound of your dog. So my dog is technically somewhere around 143 pounds. So I'm gonna do about 1.43 cc's. It's really hard to see because this is an old eyedropper, but very, very, very small amount for a 140 something, 150 pound dog. You can even do a little bit less if you're a little worried about it. Now, if you want to go super natural, because you have to be very careful with, I think, sheepdog breeds and collie breeds cannot have ivermectin. There's something in their DNA that it causes a lot of problems. So for those type of breeds of dogs, you can use Heartworm Protect there, or HWF. It's the same exact thing. It's all completely natural, which is black walnuts, wormwood, oats, parsley. There's a couple of different things in here that does prevent heartworms. The only reason I don't use this is because it's very tedious. You have to feed it. You have to go 1 drop for 2 pounds of body weight up to 50 pounds, and then 2 drops after that, and you have to feed it 5 days on, 3 days off, 5 days off. So it's very hard to keep track of, but if you want to prevent heartworms naturally and very inexpensively, this is about 30 bucks. You can use this on any breed that can't use ivermectin, or you can use it on any breed at all. It doesn't matter, just as long as you stay tedious with it and make sure you keep a calendar of when you feed it and when you don't. So that's a way more natural way of doing things. So for male dogs that are not neutered, my dog is not neutered. Long story, when I first got him, he was very, very thin, and I had to give him a couple medications for UTIs and stuff like that, and he almost died from it. He had almost organ failure. So I was told that anesthesia would be very dangerous for him to get him neutered, and also for super large dogs. If you're a very responsible person, it's best to leave them unneutered. Prostate cancer, especially with the raw diet, is much more rare than people say that it is. That's kind of a tactic that they use to scare you into neutering, because there are a lot of irresponsible people and their dogs will run off and impregnate other dogs, and we rescue, we don't breed, so let's keep that in mind. So I am vigilant about my dog. I'm spending like half my life savings getting a fence right now that's very secure so that he can't run off. I don't allow him around any unneutered males, any unspayed females. I watch him like a hawk. But to protect the prostate, because obviously it does lead to a little bit of a risk to not have a neutered dog, I have a huge combination of a lot of different herbs that are very safe for dogs, that not only help the prostate for dogs, but for men as well. So you older men, 30 years old and up, if you want to start taking care of your prostate, all of these things can be consumed by human as well. So the number one thing is Pipsissewa. It's a herbal root, and it's just a couple of drops a day that I give him. This is a huge mix. I literally put everything in a blender and powdered it. And I just pour a little bit of this over his food every single day. And it includes, I'm gonna put a list in the description because I don't have my exact list, but it's probably 8 items. Very inexpensive on Amazon. I think I spend maybe $30 a year on the whole slew of herbs. Saw palmetto, olive leaf, corn silk. I also put a little bit of glucosamine in here, turmeric, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. I'm gonna look that up on my phone. I have it, and I'll be able to post an exact link to all of that. So this is what pre-mades look like. If you're lazy and you don't want to do a meal prep yourself, you can buy these. You're going to want to find a local dealer for raw food. The main thing that you need to know is never feed your dog any vegetables, never feed your dog any grains, never feed your dog any fruits. I know it sounds crazy because for years and years and years, vets have been saying, feed your dog fruits and vegetables. Their GI tract is not built for it. The pH balance in their stomach is not built to consume fruits, vegetables, and grains. They can eat it just like we can eat McDonald's every day, but they're gonna have a stomach ache daily, whether they show signs of it or not. And what happens is their immune system tries to work overtime in order to digest things that they're typically not supposed to digest. And over time, what happens is it causes cancers, it causes allergies, it causes organ failure. That's why you have to keep your dog on a carnivore diet, which is meat only. So where do you get the carbs from? Where do you get the nutrients from? Why is it okay to feed all meat and no vegetables? So from the fat in the meat, you're gonna get all of your carbs and all of your glucose, which is not too much glucose, which is why we don't feed fruits. Too much glucose and too many carbs is not good for a dog. It's not good for their heart. That's why you'll see a lot of young dogs have heart failure these days, and of course the vets want to prescribe you a bunch of medication that's very expensive for that, and including don't ever feed your dog Apoquil, by the way. I know people are going to argue with me about that, but Apoquil is part of what I think caused cancer in my dog, and I've seen it in many dogs, and there's a huge correlation, but I'm not allowed to say that. So anyway, and nothing against vets. I actually have a wonderful vet that I go to that has fed his dog a raw diet for a very long time, and he's actually educated me on quite a few things, and he's amazing. And I'll bring stuff up to him all the time, and he'll actually go and research it himself. So the other nutrients that you would be missing from vegetables comes from the organs. That's why you need 3 different types of organ meat. That's why people who do this wrong have nutritionally deficient dogs, is because they don't use the correct organs or the correct amounts. So we're gonna get to amounts now. After this, I'm gonna clip this video and I'm gonna start a new video, and I'm gonna go over every single amount, how to weigh it, how much to use for your size dog, for my size dog, and how to calculate it and how to make it super simple. I know this all sounds complicated right now, but I'm gonna break it down and make it very easy in the next video. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a million things, so I will probably be linking a few things in the description of the video once I'm all finished. Oh, that was another thing I forgot, was flea prevention. So, sorry, I forgot to take it out. For fleas and ticks, this is called, I'm sorry, this is dirty because I spilled the salmon oil on it, diatomaceous earth food grade. It's a little bit of a powder, kind of looks like cocaina. Typically your dogs are not going to get fleas or ticks unless you're in a really wooded area. Now I live in the woods basically, and I've never had a problem. Duncan had fleas when I did first pick him up. And what you do is obviously give your dog a flea bath if they ever get fleas to start. You can sprinkle this all in your yard, and sprinkle a little bit on their back and on their skin once every couple of days. I bought this a long time ago. I've pretty much never used it because I don't need it. I've never had a problem with fleas, so I just leave it out. But it's also good for digestion. You can even put it in your own smoothie and eat it. It's very good for you. It's almost crystallized, so it's like a cleanse. When the dog eats it, when you put it on their food, they'll eat it and it actually cleans everything out from the inside. It's very good for humans and for dogs. It's also good for bed bugs, cockroaches, any type of pests that you have. You can spread it all around your yard. You'll get rid of all the ticks. It's great for mosquitoes. I use this in my yard and it kills all the mosquitoes. Don't breathe it in. That's the only warning that I have for this, is that it's powder and it's, like I said, it's crystallized, so it can kind of hurt your lungs a little bit. But you can definitely put it in your smoothie or your protein shake, and it's really good for a cleanse. It really cleans your system, and it's very healthy for you and for the dogs. Okay, so next video, I'll have everything pre-made so I can go over a quick description, and I'll explain how to do it, and I'll give you a couple more tips on how to do it cheaply and a little bit more information as to why your dog's entire system is built for a raw diet, not for dried kibble that's been sitting on the shelf for forever.